this way? I mean, because I can see better pictures than, hey, picture and bunch of information there, right? Right click, sort, start timeline.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us at the Alert Center this afternoon. I'm Jacqueline Fernandez. Today, we are talking with Josh Planos with the Better Business Bureau. Tomorrow is the BBB Torch Awards. This is the awards for ethics recipients. That's taking place mañana, as I mentioned. And it's an award program that celebrates organizations that lead with integrity. So what does it take to lead with integrity? Well, we can discuss some practical tips for creating and sustaining an ethical business, and that is why Josh Planos, again with the Better Business Bureau, is joining us now to kind of give us a better idea for what integrity is and what that means, and how we can perhaps utilize these practical tips. Josh, thanks for joining us this afternoon. How are you?
Thanks so much for having me, Jacqueline. I'm doing well. It sounds like it would be a lot more complicated than it actually is to have an ethical business, and yet it's something that organizations lose sight of rather quickly when it comes time to making those decisions, which is why our first tip is really to define those values as early as possible.
Great
How
idea.
often in life are we trying to work our way backward from having made that decision, when in reality it's a lot easier to just start with what those guiding principles are. So if integrity, if transparency, respect are central to your decisions, then you're going to make decisions a certain way. An example that we saw this year in our application pool for the Torch Awards was that one organization said that honesty in advertising is a founding value. So they choose not to use fine print or make any misleading claims in any of their marketing materials. That's something that they started from day one and have continued throughout the entirety of their history as an organization.
Gosh, that sounds great. That sounds rather refreshing. I'll say that. Now, another thing that you're saying is lead by example. I think that's one of the bullet points that you're mentioning as well. So again, if we're utilizing one of the torch recipients as an example, the person or group that you just mentioned, I mean, this is one way that they're leading by example, by doing, sticking with their core values.
Yeah, and that really flows from everywhere, right? I mean, leadership can come from any job, any rung on the ladder. Typically, depending on the organization, maybe that first line of employees is actually the part of the staff that deals with customers most. Well, that's a really important piece in the puzzle to ensure that ethical behavior is being demonstrated. But it also, of course, requires the CEO to be on board with that as well. So if, let's say, the marketing head finds out that they underbilled a client, personally calling to correct the invoice is a really important step to take, even if the client hasn't noticed, right? That seems like a legality piece, but there is an ethical component to that decision, and you really want all rungs of the ladder, all departments feeding into that culture that all of us want to be a part of as an employee when we choose, a potential employer.
Sure. And we're just kind of going down this list that you sent, so thank you so much. Talk a little bit about writing and enforcing a code of ethics, especially for new employees. I mean, maybe they're not so sure what the code of ethics are necessarily. Maybe there's, a list of 3 things that they pop up on the walls, maybe in the restrooms even, to kind of, a gentle nudge, so to speak, to get people to kind of stay on board with what the company is about and represents.
It's great when you see it on a wall, right? I think, but for a lot of folks, the shorthand of kind of bypassing the whole conversation is, well, it's on the wall, right? If you have a policy, though, where there's a clarification of the company's expectations around honesty, around things like a conflict of interest, artificial intelligence usage, privacy, accountability, that goes a long way, right? And for a lot of organizations, that's baked into their employee manual, but not all. And it's really important that a code of ethics is kind of an annual agreement at many organizations. There's clauses related to accepting gifts. So if vendors, are trying to sway your decision with perks, you know how to handle that kind of situation. In a lot of cases, that comes from the leadership creating that code of ethics policy and having an annual agreement made by all members of staff, not just those who deal with clients, but everyone, because everyone deals with ethics in their own way. And presumably, as an organization, you want everybody on board with that collective attitude toward that code.
Definitely, and you really want to make sure that everybody in the organization kind of knows what the key ethics are for the company, as you mentioned. And this leads us to the next point of discussion: transparency. I think this is so important. Josh, can you kind of explain to us why exactly?
So one thing I think that's really interesting about ethics is it's really not it's not any easier. Some of these decisions are easy, but they do typically require more work, right? So like communicating openly is something we all want from our employer. We all want to know uh, what page are we on, where are we at with that project, when's that next assignment coming, how can we all support one another. Typically, though, that does require more work to communicate, particularly when that person who needs to know isn't in the room at the time. So, for instance, if your organization deals with things like supply chain delays, you want to be a company that really stands for updating your customers in real time, even when that news isn't good, particularly when that news isn't good, because that is truly what builds trust more than pretending everything is fine, right? How often, do we kind of breeze out of meetings and feel like, well, I guess that went a lot better than we all just kind of explained that it did.
Right.
It's so much better with everybody on the same wavelength with how things are going, even when, uh, unfortunately, there are some circumstances that popped up that might not be ideal.
Sure, and oftentimes we discuss best practices for businesses and small businesses, et cetera. And along with, leaving those reviews and writing down an honest and fair review, one thing that really stands out to me anyway is getting back to the customer, right? So they write this review and then you don't hear anything, or, I guess that's just out in the ether somewhere. But actually taking the time to read what somebody wrote and respond appropriately, and maybe there's a good tip there, right? Maybe there's something that will actually help your business in moving forward. So, you might learn something that will actually help.
Without question, some of the best ideas that we get as an organization at any of the organizations that I've worked for in my life have come from those who weren't totally satisfied with their experience, because it allowed you to make refinements to that process, refinements to your decision making that ultimately resulted in a happier customer, right? I think for a lot of folks, particularly with things like social media, right? If you're told your company needs to be visible everywhere, so you set up all of these accounts, then you kind of walk away from those accounts. In some cases, that's where you're getting that communication. So it's really important that you do check in with those accounts, because that might be where the feedback is, right? If you've got a Google business profile and somebody leaves you a negative review, hopefully you remember to check that out, but it's really important to set up notifications so you do. On the BBB, you can't be a member of our organization if you don't respond to all complaints. That's something that I think we'd all like to have from the companies that we frequent, but that of course takes more work. And for a lot of folks, that's a headache. But the reality is that is how you actually prioritize fair treatment for all stakeholders, not just your employees, but your customers, and particularly your customers who feel like something needs to change or something could be improved.
Right, I love that. So if you're on Twitter, if you're on Facebook, if you're on Pinterest or what have you, know why, right? I mean, there should be a reason that you're on there. Know your demographic, know why you're utilizing that social media platform. Anything else you wanted to add today, Josh?
Just lastly, I would say ethics is not frequently enough given a seat at the table, and it's really an essential part of what we look for in everything, whether it's the companies that we choose to apply to be a part of, or the people we bring in to be our teammates, or the customers we seek out. That can be a part of the hiring and training practice at your organization. You can actually hire for values, not just whether or not they have experience with the Microsoft Office suite, right? You can hire for people who include ethics in their resume, in their job description. Make it part of your onboarding process. You can offer ongoing training. You can bring in speakers to speak to it. It's really a bigger part of the picture than it regularly is given credence for, but it's something that we should be working for it all the time. And I think it's fantastic that we offer the Torch Awards for ethics. It's one of my favorite parts of my job to celebrate those companies, because this is something that frequently is glossed over, and yet is something that we all want from our company.
Yeah, no, that's really great. Yeah, I'm like, get out of my head. Yeah, ethics today, and we'll talk about morals and cleanliness next week. Gotta love it, Josh. All right, well, thank you so much again for your time here at the Alert Center. Always appreciate it. Always learn something from you. Have a good rest of your day.
Good to see you, Jacqueline. Thank you
You
so
too.
much.
Thank you. Have a good day. See, so that was Josh Planos joining us from the Better Business Bureau, just talking about those torch awards for ethics for businesses. This event is taking place tomorrow evening, and we just went over a few bullet points that really kind of outline some integrity for businesses, some practical tips for creating and sustaining an ethical business. So we have some tips there, and we'll be sure to outline those in some detail for you during our 4:30 p.m. broadcast this evening. Let's talk about the weather, shall we? So this is an interesting shot for you. Let's take a live look from our Blackstone camera. A lot of interesting clouds out there today. I think I mentioned that yesterday as well. Taking a look here, what is going on out there? Senior Chief Meteorologist Rusty Lord says today, there you have it, increasing clouds, a 30% chance of spotty storms after 1 in the afternoon. Tonight, a 20% chance of spotty storms before 10 o'clock with a low of 49 degrees. Ooh, I like this shot too. A beautiful shot of the American flag blowing in the wind, and not too windy out there, which is also a pleasant fact to be able to report to you right now. This is a live look from our Northeast First National camera. Friday, mostly sunny. Yes, finally a beautiful day, clocking in with a high of 80 degrees. A good day to call out sick, just saying, but you didn't hear it from me, no worries. And another shot of those clouds for you, because why not? Here's a live look over Children's Nebraska camera. Saturday, partly cloudy, a 30% chance of spotty afternoon showers with a high of 84. So not bad. I don't mind the little showers here and there by the pool. You know, don't forget your sunblock, your sunscreen. It still seems to do the job, even if it is a little cloudy out there. I'm told those rays can still kind of go through the clouds and filter through, and you still get burned. So something to take note of there. Now, meantime, we can always head to our website, that is firstalert6.com, for the latest news that our digital department, woot woot, is keeping track of around the clock for us. A little shout out for our digital team here. So you can scroll down and check out our top headlines and take a look at the main news of the day as it comes our way. We post that for you. Our top story right now, Nebraska Governor Jim Pillen to run for re-election in 2026. It's a story we're working on at the moment, and of course, this updates as we get more information on various stories. In the meantime, just want to say thanks so much for joining us at the Alert Center this afternoon, and be sure to stay tuned for our broadcast at 3 o'clock with our Dave Zavolinsky. Hopefully, we'll see you then.